any of those two?
I think you should be in the middle. But okay, great.
Good. So we don't have a lot of time, so I don't want to quiz you too long on your background and life story, but I still think it's very interesting. Maybe let's start with you, Florian. So you are in this business for a very long time, founding this company, I think 25 years as a student. Can you tell us, can you just give us a brief summary of what the path is there for you?
So thanks for having me, and hello everyone. That was an accident actually.
Okay.
I was a student in St. Gallen, and I was interested in entrepreneurship and venture capital, and there was nothing around. So we started a student initiative called START. And at the end, I mean, this conference was pretty big. And when it was my last year, 5 angel investors asked me, you know, Florian, you know all those startups in Europe? I have $1 million or 2 million to invest. In which one should I? And that was the beginning of the whole thing.
Okay. So you now have also an extremely interesting path. You worked for quite some time at Google. Still or no?
No,
totally.
no.
Okay.
Right now, yeah.
And interesting tidbit, if you read the Transformer paper, which of course all of you have read, because it's the most influential machine learning paper, probably at least in history for now. NAL is actually acknowledged in the acknowledgement section for corrections. So, you know, some people can say, I created the transformer. Other people can say, I fixed it, I corrected it. Maybe I give you too much credit, but I had to laugh when I read it. So how did you go from being at Google to being an angel investor?
I love to hear my research career being sort of summarized into a footnote, you know, in a paper.
It's a great footnote.
Yeah, it's a great footnote, apparently. Yeah, but actually it's a good metaphor for my life. No, and also it's actually kind of weird to be on investors panel. I really, most of my career has been about research. And the way I ended up sort of making some investments recently is by knowing some of these research scientists who also co-founded various AI companies, and that's really just how it happened. Very actually accidentally, I would say, also by accident, but in a very different way. Many of the companies we all talk about have been founded by people who were at DeepMind and other places, and that's basically how I sort of started talking to them. And sometimes they would ask me for some support, and or any collaboration. Yeah, that's how it happened.
All right, good. So I'm curious to hear some of the stories and how you think you actually find the next big companies. Now, I think it's no secret that, for example, you, Florian, with your company, very early on invested in DeepL, which I think is familiar to pretty much everyone. And you now I think it's also public that you're a seed investor in Perplexity, which I also think everybody knows. And these are certainly 2 companies that are on a trajectory. I mean, it wouldn't surprise anyone if they did actually become, or I mean, they're already, of course, quite large, but could become massively larger. Then I'm sure you also had a series of things that didn't work out at all. But let's maybe first talk about these 2 for each of you. So how did you find them, and how did you know that this was? I mean, obviously you believed it was going to work, but was there something special where you just felt like that's special with DeepL, for example?
So DeepL, like the other 6 unicorns I've seeded, have all of them, and that's true for all, have come to me through an angel investor who had a very special relationship with the founder very early on. So I think that is a very unfair advantage, and the real honest answer.
Okay, but still, I assume they're going to be you get such introductions very often, and you're not committing to all of them.
That's true. That's true. And yeah, we see more than 4,000 now per year, and we end up investing in 10.
Okay, that's quite the ratio there.
Yes. Well, I think it's really, it boils down to two things. How timely do we think the idea is on the time stream? And how big could it become if it becomes a success? And only after that comes the quality of a team. And that is funny because a lot of VCs say, it's team. I think it's true, but and a very, very good team can pivot, can realize, oh, that's the wrong idea at the wrong time, and they do something else. But it does cost energy and time and resources, so why not starting with the right idea at the right time? So and that is our work to do, especially those 2 points.
Okay.
Yeah.
What's the story with Perplexity?
Yeah, so actually Arvind Srinivas, the CEO, he was intern at Google DeepMind, working very closely also with us, and he he finished his internship. He went to OpenAI, and then after 8 months he left, but we're still talking. And and actually Arvind had a unique skill already back then, which is that actually, some of my other colleagues who work with him are actually complaining about some of his research directions, but actually had amazing skill, which was like he could talk one-on-one with many of us in an incredibly honest, sincere and honest way, and he would many of these researchers back then were almost competitive with each other. Maybe we wouldn't be so open to them, but Arvind was his link that was actually connecting all these DeepMind people, and he also OpenAI co-founders, and he would talk to all kinds of really important people in this very honest way. But anyway, so he left OpenAI. He's like, Nal, he kept in touch with me. Nal, I'm doing a company. I was like, well, that's awesome. What are you going to do about it? Well, I have no idea. I don't know what I'm going to do. I was like, well, that's great. But I want to do something. He really felt the wave of of AI coming, and we kept on talking and stuff, and yes, eventually I invested a little bit in their company, and that was a good decision. But actually, it was actually a terrible decision in retrospect, because he was actually asking me to be a co-founder. He was actually saying, "You should, let's do this together." And he was, he was very, very, and back then he was actually looking up to me because. Well, now he's a superstar, but back then he really respected researchers in the field, in this hardcore deep learning, very empirical researchers, and he wanted to have a co-founder like that. So actually, contrary to what you're saying, I gave this check to Arvind based on no ideas, and based on I don't know, I just liked him. I thought he was cool. But what's really incredible to see, in 2.5 years or something, somebody who was basically working with you as an intern, now shaking hands with Narendra Modi and all these prime ministers around the world and tweeting about this all the time. So yeah, that's amazing. Yeah.
It's amazing.
But can I ask you, how long did you know him before?
For a couple of years before. Yeah.
Knew him well. Yeah.
Yeah.
So when Nicola was here from Y Combinator, he had this saying, right, that he said we sometimes invest in founders despite their idea, because what they see is that, I think if I have the numbers correct, at the end 50% are anyways pivoting in one way or another, and so it's really not the idea that's key for them, but the people. It's not. The idea has merit, but in a maybe different way than one would think. So when you look at those 4,000 potential companies, are you also putting a lot of importance on the people, and how do you assess that?
Yes, we do. I mean, this is, as I said, it's the number 2 question we ask ourselves. And ideally, we work with an angel like now who has known that person for a long time, because looking into the past of the people tells you so much about their willpower, their willingness to go through walls and creativity, tenacity, whatever you have. But it's very paradox as well, because there's no real rule. There are some of my colleague investors and other firms who say we never invest in serial entrepreneurs because X, Y, Z, or others say we only invest in serial entrepreneurs. I think the truth is, we looked at data. We analyzed 100 serial entrepreneurs, successful and unsuccessful ones. And the interesting thing we found was that the ones who succeeded again had a very different feature, which is a winning feature. They still were hungry for success. Okay. It's simple, but it's one of those 50 things we look at.
You look at, exactly. Okay, also if we could get the QR code up so that people can start asking questions, that would be good. Is it correct that venture capital is almost always a losing game and you're just making up by the big wins? At least that's the story we're being told, I would say, from the US. Is that nevertheless a largely globally correct story?
Well, the US, especially some firms in Silicon Valley, Benchmark, Sequoia, and maybe others, are far more advanced still today than us here in Europe. We in Europe tend to forget that, and care about the problem cases, which is unfair, because we should, as soon as we have visibility on the winners, we should only spend time and money on them. We try to do. It's a lot of discipline. It's emotionally, it's hard. We once tried with our third fund. We thought, oh, now we are super smart. We're extremely smart now because we have learned from the first two that, for follow-on funding, we have to be more disciplined. And we changed our rules for follow-on funding. And we said the partner who is in the board has no saying in the follow-on decision. And the result was the contrast, because the others thought, oh, he's not in the room. We don't want to sack him. Okay, let's be nice. We are still improving, but ideally, in our case, where we invest very, very early on, we do focus on the top 5 at the end of the fund, or 7, let's say, out of 35 initial investments.
Okay, that's interesting. How do you see the geo-economic aspect here? Is if we look forward 10 years, we have big tech companies. First question, will they still be the same, or will we have completely new actors? Will they all be in the US, or will some of them be elsewhere? What's your hypothesis there now, maybe?
Yeah, sure. I mean, I don't look at statistics globally all the time, but there is actually there's this topic, right? Why does Europe seems to be failing at producing these very big tech companies, and what is going on here? And I was I was thinking for the past 6 months since I actually left Google. I was also thinking about startups and so on, and co-founding and things like this. And why is, and it does seem to be hard. It seems to be hard to sort of assemble a strong team despite this amount of connections. And I don't know why it is, but for example, just recently, like in the past 2 months, OpenAI opened a research office in Zurich, Anthropic opened a research office in Zurich for AI research. And these two teams who went there, is about maybe 10 people in total, senior Googlers. Like all of them, if they made a company, they would be amazing starting founding team, super hardcore people, super driven, and right now, the amazing timing too, because Europe is looking for this type of like teams that found. But no, instead they're working for Anthropic and OpenAI as employees number 1,000 or 4,000. This type of thinking would never happen in Silicon Valley. It's extremely likely that if there's enough people at the same time leaving a company and they have the same interests and they worked together before, they would have tried to make a company actually or something like that. So I don't know what it is that blocks people from trying to take this bigger step in Europe. Hopefully this will change, and we'll see more of that, because this is how OpenAI happened. This is how it's an agglomeration of researchers who knew each other before. The same for Anthropic, the same for
Yeah. What's your hypothesis?
Well, unfortunately, we have seen some teams going to the US because of regulation. Here we have to be careful in Europe.
No. So is that because of regulation?
Yeah,
or
because of the AI Act.
Okay.
So that's a very, very strong signal, I think. But we must be positive here and say, hey, we're going to fix it, and we will have incremental successes and here and there outliers. And why not, building a 100 billion AI company out of Europe? Why not? Do I see that company here in the next 12 months? No. In the US, yes, we do.
Okay, so it will remain a US heavy thing. So first question is, where should I put my money? I'm not sure you guys can answer that, because that's what you're trying to do. I mean, unless you want to, but otherwise, maybe let's go to the next question. What about survivor bias? Does it not make all that we think make a successful startup relative? Let me try to parse that sentence. Yeah, I guess sort of, with survivor bias, there's this notion, right, that perhaps we can't learn that much from the successful ones. We tend to overthink. And maybe that's also tied to another question there, biggest mistake you made and what you're learning from it. Is it true that you're learning something from the things you didn't invest and it failed? I think you have an interesting story there as well, if I read that correctly when I Googled you a bit more intensely.
You mean the Uber story?
Yes.
Okay. Thanks for reminding me. And our anti-portfolio list is awesome.
Yeah. So Florian had a chance to invest in Uber at the super seed almost seed, and didn't.
But it's a bit the analogy to soccer, I think, is right here. I mean, if you never have been in front of a goal, and win the world championship, it's a bit bizarre. So it's part of our business. But the learnings, coming back to the learnings, I started in 2015, I started telling each and everyone in the company, as soon as we have a write-off, do a 2-pager. 1 page of history, first contact, first impression of a deck, follow-on funding, la. And then the reasoning on the second side. What did we learn out of it in order to become smarter? And after 3 years, I had shown it to all of our investors, and they all said, "Oh, great! You talk about failure and you learn. That's fantastic. So that's good." But after 3 years, one investor told me, "Florian, you should much more focus on the winners. Why have you invested in a war? What's the pattern?" And Kasparov does that too with all the speed games he does. After a win, he looks at that many times again to understand the patterns.
Why you won.
And that's what we do as well.
All right. So there's a question about what are the 3 main AI trends that you expect. I actually want to modify this question a little bit. Do you even look for trends? Because if I'm a bit provocative, right, the two big successes that we just talked about are actually relatively boring, right? It's translation and search, right? It's not, some kind of crazy new thing. Are you looking for boring stuff, or are you also, because boring is something that, is probably a big business, or are you also really thinking, oh, the next new thing is reasoning and agents, so I must invest in those?
And also, I think a unique. So among these, again, from the perspective of sort of technical founders, among these technical founders, a unique skill is really to have this product vision, like really long-term product vision. And when it comes to product vision, actually, contrary to what you just said, I think it's very important to have a product that. To be able to keep the most interested engineers, right? You need to have a product that has where the sky is the limit, can really go far. And actually, in that respect, search is still not bad. Like, because the limit of search is AGI in a sense, right? I mean, this just gives you the best answers, right? Yeah. So a lot of people, and that's part of the success story of Google itself initially, right? And now Perplexity and so on, which. So when you work on, so I think it's very important to work on a product that has where the vision inspires the brightest minds, and this will help you to attract this sort of talent. And the other thing I want to say, actually, but having this product vision is really unique among technical founders. I have plenty of really smart people, but knowing how to do AI product, which is the hot, it's probably an area to look at right now, is really a different thing. It's a different drive. It's a different coding setup. It's everything else. So if you can find these rare technical founders who are really good at product, and it probably comes down to the way they talk to people, the way they think about, and so on. And if the product vision is really lofty, I think that's probably a good direction to look at.
Okay. What do you think? I also want to just add another side question to that, because you mentioned this very impressive statistic, right? Of 4,000, you say 10, yes to 10. How do you even, are you looking for mistakes? Because there's also this saying, right, that VC investors should not think about what could go wrong, but what could actually go right, right? Because you're trying to imagine how this could be big. How do you square that? Because you have to say no to 3,990. Are you not just scanning for a mistake? Can you really imagine what could go right in 4,000 of those?
No,
okay.
No. And I mean, I sleep well because.
Because of DeepL.
No, but. No, but what we are, I think, very good at is sorting out the top 5%. Yeah, I think we're really good at it. And then, it's hard work. It's a lot of hard work. It's hustling. And being lucky also, for sure. Yeah.
A lot of luck.
For sure.
So this one is blinking red, but there is a question highlighted in green. So we're going to take it. So I think it's very interesting because you mentioned regulation, and we heard previously from speakers who said startups shouldn't even think about regulation because that's sort of their least problem. So are there specific aspects of the AI Act that you think are creating problems for startups that you wish policymakers would remove?
I'm happy to follow up with that and post it. But I know that in the last 6 months we had 3 very, very good teams moving from Europe to the US, and because of regulation, they said.
Okay, all right. Good. So as I promised, time will run out when we just get started, and it did. Thank you very much for coming. We wish you all the success, and please keep us up to date also with the failings, because that really helps us also learn and realize. It's something that culturally I think we all should do more. I know LinkedIn is sort of the anti-pattern. Everybody just posts when things are going great. We should have a sort of anti-LinkedIn as well. And I think VC investors do that actually quite a lot. So thank you very much. And thanks for coming.
Thank you.
Thanks,
Marcel.
Pleasure.
Thank you for the fun talk.